Are you ready to turn your potential into performance? If so, you're in the right place. This is the Coach Brew Show, and here's your host, John Brubaker.
Ownership. Pack light, love heavy. Welcome to the Coach Brew Podcast, episode number 515. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial at audibletrial.com/coachbrew. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Go to audibletrial.com/coachbrew. Talking about ownership, packing light and loving heavy. Let me explain. It was almost exactly a year ago that I was down in Florida speaking to the Pittsburgh Pirates coaching staff. This is my second year with the team, and I had made friends with my driver, Tom Graham, who for the past 2 years, he'd been my go-to guy who'd pick me up from Tampa Airport and drove me to Pirate City, which is the home of Pittsburgh spring training in Bradenton, Florida. And the title of my speech to the staff was Pack Light, Love Heavy, which was inspired by lyrics in my friend Aaron Watson's song, Bluebonnets. It's a song he dedicated to the child that he and his wife lost. So the message from the song is that life is short and sweet, and we need to make the most of the moments God has blessed us with. And I'm reminded of that this week more so than ever, because we lost Tom Graham suddenly last Monday. So this week's podcast is dedicated to Tom Graham. And I want to share with you a little story about him and about my time down there with the team this time a year ago, talking about ownership. So the theme for the Pirates season in 2017 was ownership, and their manager, Clint Hurdle, asked me to come down and speak to the coaching staff on that subject, which set up real nicely for me because my theme for the year was Pack Light, Love Heavy. And the story behind that is a year ago, we had moved. We sold our house and bought a new one. And my wife had to handle the closing on our new home alone because I was headed down to speak to the Pirates. This is 2 years ago. And she said the best way I could help was to simply pack my stuff up. And she recommended, actually, though, that I pack 2 weeks worth of clothes. Not for my 2 days in Florida, but because their stuff wouldn't be completely unpacked by the time I got back. So when I returned, interesting thing happened. 2 weeks turned into 2 months, and I still hadn't unpacked my stuff. So at that point, I had decided that if I hadn't used it in 2 months, I really didn't need to own it. So I gave 13 33-gallon garbage bags full of clothing to the Goodwill. So if you're keeping score at home, that's 429 gallons of stuff that I obviously didn't need and was really just weighing me down. I also donated 12 Bankers boxes full of books, DVDs, and CDs. So to complete the purge, I scanned almost all my business files, uploaded them to the cloud, and shredded the paper to clear out some filing cabinets. So fast forward a year from then, I really still only wear the same 2 weeks of clothing. Somehow, I've managed to survive. I actually thrived because of it. And I share this with you because it's a microcosm of society, especially for America's largest generation, millennials. So the numbers don't lie when it comes to ownership. Home ownership is at an all-time low today. Car ownership is at a 50-year low with less than one car for every 2.5 Americans. CD and DVD ownership is virtually non-existent. And 45% of all book sales are ebooks. So essentially, and this is what I shared with the Pittsburgh Pirates coaching staff, essentially, we live in a society of renters. Millennials are a generation of renters by their very nature. And that sounds like a liability, right? Well, here's why it's actually an asset. 72% of millennials prioritize experiences over things. They view ownership of things as a major commitment that weighs them down. And I can testify to the fact that owning less is a liberating feeling. At the same time that society is owning less things, consumer spending on live experiences over things increased 70% in the last 30 years. It's a different kind of ownership. It's emotional ownership. So the statistics prove that millennials are actually craving emotional ownership. And you can have a skin in the game without financial ownership. The question is, do they own their experience in your organization? Now, if the answer is yes, you have a massive advantage over your competition at a time when advantages are disappearing. And there are really three types of advantages in every industry. And the first two are really largely going away. The first one's informational. The internet's leveled the playing field and provided everyone with equal access at equal speed. The second type of advantage that's also going away is analytical. Most organizations in every industry utilize analytics today, especially in Major League Baseball. So that advantage is actually evaporating on the early adopters because that playing field's been leveled. Only when you're on the cutting edge of analytics can you enjoy some competitive advantage. So the reality of it is, unless you can find value where others don't or before others do, the analytic playing field will be pretty level as well. But there's a third type of advantage, and that's behavioral. Your ultimate advantage is behavioral, meaning the individual and collective behaviors of your team become your competitive edge. Now, here's the nice thing. Technology simply cannot eliminate this advantage. Ever. So that's packing light. How about loving heavy? Well, ownership is really a set of behaviors. Love, vulnerability, and commitment are ownership behaviors. And in a world of renters, creating an environment where people want to be emotionally invested will absolutely elevate and separate you from the competition. Ownership's also a two-way street. And the Pirates invest in their people. And as a result, their people are invested in their jobs. So I could tell you all about my experience with their coaches when I spoke to them, but I'd rather tell you about an unsung hero there. Because ownership needs to happen at all levels of an organization. So as you're listening to this, you're in this story too. The Pirates driver, Tom Graham, who I mentioned, shuttles me to and from the airport. Well, Tom told me that when his wife died, the Pirates front office attended her funeral. And when he got sick last winter, he practically had to kick Pirates employees out of his house. They kept coming over and checking on him to make sure he was okay. So the organization has shown him all this love. They've shown him how much they love him and they're committed to him. And he proudly reciprocated that love every day at work. So case in point, let's flash back to 2 years ago. When I had to leave at 3 a.m. to catch a 5 a.m. flight home, I told him, I said, Tom, I'll call a cab because I don't want you to have to wake up in the middle of the night to drag my butt down to the airport. And he wouldn't let me. He said, no, John, I insist on taking you. It's no trouble at all. The Pittsburgh Pirates are my family. They gave me a job when no one else would, and they've always been there for me. It's an honor for me to make that drive at 3 a.m. I'll be there. You can count on it. So fast forward, and he was there, and he did make that drive for me. So fast forward, that was 2 years ago. Fast forward to last year. Well, Tom remembered me when he picked me up. He asked me about my kids and if I had written any new books. We talked about his kids and his grandkids. And of course, baseball. But my question is, you think Tom owns his job? Yeah, you bet. He packs light and he loves heavy. He's absolutely the most stadium status driver ever. And I share this story with you about Tom because you need to foster an environment of ownership from top to bottom on your team for one simple but powerful reason. Owners want to be surrounded by other owners. They don't want to be around renters. Top performers are owners, and they need to be surrounded by other owners. So I promise you this, if you pack light and love heavy, your people will too. Remember, life's short and we're only here for a little while. Hug your family and friends. Tell them you love them. Rest in peace, Tom. This has been the Coach Brew Podcast. For more information, you can head on over to coachbrew.com. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Coach Brew Show. If you're not currently subscribed to the podcast, sign up now on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. And for more information to turn your potential into performance, head on over to coachbrew.com now.